The virtual CISO moment is brought to you by vCISO Services, a leading provider of quality and experienced virtual chief information security officers for small and mid-sized businesses. Check them out at vcisoservices.com. Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the virtual CISO moment special end of April episode. We have Lisa Plaggemier here with us. She is the Executive Director of the National Cybersecurity Alliance. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
So this is a little bit different than our usual interviews. You're not actually, didn't really start as an IT, information security, cybersecurity practitioner, but yet now you are the Executive Director of the National Cybersecurity Alliance. So I would love to hear your story on your background and then how you got into cyber.
So my background is actually marketing, and I'm a firm believer that every good security department needs a good communicator or marketing person to help you expand your influence in the business and do thought leadership about your security posture and all kinds of good stuff, which I know sounds scary to a lot of CISOs, but you can actually do it and not get yourself in hot water legally. So I was just minding my own business doing marketing at an automotive technology company. I started in consumer marketing at Ford Motor Company and then moved into tech and B2B. And they decided they wanted to do some thought leadership about how we protected 500 million consumer records like social security numbers and driver's licenses. And so I started working with the chief security officer. The connected car stuff started happening. The Jeep hack happened. So we wanted to go out and talk about that because we felt like we had a really mature security program compared to our competitors. And we did. And so we got speaking engagements at a JD Power conference, and I, wrote a lot of content for the website and blogs and all that good stuff, and, working side by side with the chief security officer, but as a marketing person. And then we got spun off from our parent company, and he said, I want you to join the security team full time. And I'm like, I'm a marketing bozo. What are you going to do with me? And he said, well, I'm going to need somebody to help with board presentations and want to keep doing all this thought leadership stuff. And, oh yeah, we're going to have to run a training and awareness program. And I said, what's that? And he said, that's that stuff our parent company makes us do once a year. And I said, people hate that. I don't want to do that stuff. They click through it while they're on a conference call. Like nobody pays any attention to it whatsoever. It's a horrible experience. And he said, okay, I'm going to give you enough budget that we can go to an outside agency, a creative agency, and do something really exciting. And we did, and we won awards and had a blast. So that was my entry into cybersecurity. And I ended up doing incident communications, messaging out to executives and to legal what was happening during an incident. And lo and behold, that first day that we got spun, we had 4 incidents back to back.
Of course.
It was baptism by fire. Yeah, because the bad guys read the press. They know what's happening. So yeah, that's I think being an incident response is one of the fastest ways to learn. And I found somebody in the SOC who spoke Lisa, who could explain things to me in terms I could understand so that I could turn around and message them to the executives who also weren't super technical. So it's really important to have that, I think, translator function. And that's essentially what we do at the National Cybersecurity Alliance. So we're a nonprofit that's on a mission to enable people like my kids and my mom to use technology safely and not get, defrauded or scammed or hacked. And so we have to translate. We have to translate, what's happening in the world and how these things work. We have to talk about these things in ways that they can understand. We have to meet them where they are. And so we produce a lot of content for people from all walks of life at all different ages to try and explain, complex security issues in ways that make sense to them and actually inspire them to change their behavior. That's the main thing.
No, I think that is so huge. I often say that in companies, the chief information security officer's main goal, one of the main goals, is to act as a translator between the board and the C-suite. They don't speak the technical mumbo jumbo, to quote a former boss of mine, and you have to be sort of that bridge. And us in security sometimes have a hard time understanding and learning the business language. And then when you get to smaller businesses, sometimes they don't even have someone in that field. And when you get to your private life, you really don't have that at all. So certainly the National Cybersecurity Alliance mission is huge. But how? Let's start first with the family side. What is in the personal life? What is a way that we can get the word out, the education out, to help people better secure, and in particular, now that we're in this new world, if you will, with all this chat GPT and AI stuff, where that introduces perhaps another vector where folks might be scammed easier?
So we actually have an approach at the end of the day. A lot of the security advice that we're giving, the behaviors we want to encourage are the same, right? But no matter what the issue is that you're talking about, it can come down to passwords, reporting, phishing, vishing, all those things, keeping your systems up to date and your software up to date, and MFA. Those are our core four. So when we talk to, so what we do is we take something that's topical and timely, something that's, relevant to people, and approach the core four through that issue. So I'll give you an example. We did last year during back to school time, we did a whole campaign on cyberbullying. I have a friend who works in cybersecurity at physical security, actually at Dell, who lost a child to cyberbullying. She had a concussion and had been a happy-go-lucky kid, but suffered a concussion, which can affect actually your mental health as well as you physically. And within a day or two, she was gone because somebody had cyberbullied her online. So we did a webinar with him and the chief security officer from Dell, and another professional that works in, I think it was an ed tech company that works with K through 12 students. And then we have that recorded webinar on our website. And then we created tip sheets for parents and teachers, a tip sheet for younger kids, what to do if this is happening to you, a tip sheet for older kids. We did an infographic with a flow chart to kind of show, because these situations are super gray, right? Like, is somebody, when it's just kind of starting out, we have a tendency to be like, oh, the bad person will just go away. I'm just going to ignore it or whatever. But sometimes that doesn't happen and the thing starts to escalate. And so we made this flow chart so that it could help, a teenager or even a parent decide, okay, who do I tell? At what point is this gone too far? Do I tell my teacher? Do I use some anonymous reporting system? Do I report it to the app that it's happening on? Is there a point where it's time to call the school district or the local police department? These situations can be hard to manage. So we did a flow chart with some really practical advice on what to do if you're a victim. And then at the end of the day, some of the advice you end up giving goes back to that core four, right? If your password is too weak and this bully might be able to, get into your Instagram or something because your password is too weak, well, then let's talk about passwords. Let's talk about MFA. A lot of issues all lead back, no matter what our entry point is, to connect with people, to provide information and advice to them that's practical and usable. It eventually gets us to a discussion about those four behaviors. And so that's how we tend to approach different things. We're constantly beating the drum on those core four because I think one of the problems we have in cybersecurity is, policies that are way too long and mention hundreds of things that people need to do.
Don't care about, yeah.
And they do care, especially for a small business that's moving really quickly. Yes, you need an employee handbook, you need acceptable use policy, you need all those things, but they don't have to be 1 million pages long. And we don't, for example, so we're the co-founders of Cybersecurity Awareness Month along with CISA every October. It's probably what we're best known for. And, CISA will send over a list of 100 different behaviors that they want the American public to do. And every year we go through a conversation where we boil that down and we eventually get to the core four. I think if everybody did those four, we'd be thrilled. So we need to keep pounding on those instead of introducing a myriad of things, because people are overwhelmed and they won't do any of it if you come at them with too much.
The four are preventative, pretty much. They help correct. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think in my old mind, you know, I go back to, I'm thinking about the cyberbullying thing again. First of all, very thankful that I didn't ever have to experience that. I just can't imagine the world. The hardest thing for me growing up, cyber or bullying wise, was basically being bullied, and then at one point in time I stood up to the bully, and then at that point in time we didn't become best friends, but there was that mutual respect there. But I cannot find a cyber equivalent for that. The cyber equivalent would be to preventative would be, well, instead of like being bullied at school, I just don't go to school, and that wouldn't have been an option there. So it's hard for me to flip it here. And I think it's
we could run home. We could run and tell a teacher. We could run right. Like when it's physical proximity, it's a very different scenario. Yeah, you can't run away online,
and particularly online with people being anonymous sometimes, and then it's such a huge issue. I don't want to get on soapbox about that. I wish that there was a really good answer for it, but I love what you all are doing in that space. And I think that you're correct. I think that keeping things as simple as possible as far as our own personal security really goes a long way. Now, one of the things, I just want your opinion on this, is that one of the things that me as a security evangelist at the CISO level for many years, that, you know, we try to, in businesses, try to run effective information security awareness programs. Yes, participating in National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, having all that stuff and everything. But we have always also come to the conclusion that if you can get them on in their personal life first to adopt good habits, then they've got so-called skin in the game. Is that an effective strategy?
Yeah, it is. And it's followed by a lot of training and awareness practitioners. So our largest cohort in our database is people running training and awareness programs. And like, for example, I'm flying to Virginia next week to talk to a group about mental health and the connections to cybersecurity with mental health for Mental Health Awareness Month. So, and that's an organization that's decided, you know, a large organization, a household name, that's decided that it's worth having an employee event and bringing a speaker in to talk about that, because they see that connection between their habits at home and their habits at work. And that's actually very it's a very common strategy that I think is worthwhile.
But now you also do, the National Cybersecurity Alliance also does other things for small and mid-sized businesses, correct?
Yeah, so we have regular webinars with topics that again, we're often the translators, right? So we'll have security professionals, you know, maybe we're talking about cloud security or identity access management, whatever the topic is, but we try and talk about it in a way that your average small business person can understand. Before COVID, we used to have a series of in-person workshops. And of course, we had to put those on ice with COVID and just keep doing webinars. But what we're launching next is actually an education series. And what we want to do, you know, I worked with car dealers for 20 years, and I can tell you that they're not going to leave the store because they're afraid they're going to miss a deal. Something's going to go wrong if they're not there. So you're not going to get them out of the store to go to a security workshop. It's just not going to happen. They're also moving really quickly. Their businesses are open to the public. They're like sieves. There's people there all the time. They've got their guest network, and the average one is sitting on 50,000 consumer records. Their networks can also, so they need to share that data a lot to do things like run a good CRM program and all those things. So they're constantly allowing third-party vendors to hook into their database. So it's a, you know, kind of a complex business with a lot of security risk and very deep pockets. Dealers are you know, they're cash-rich businesses, just with purchasing used car inventory and parts inventory and all. There's just a lot of money flowing around.
I'm sure.
So they're a nice juicy target for a cyber criminal. And there's been plenty of incidents. So we kind of tested this when I was working in automotive technology. I'd been on the board of the National Cybersecurity Alliance before I was the executive director. And we took the workshop that we used to do and kind of dealerized it. So we used language that a car dealer would understand. And this is just an example of one vertical. But if you think about it from the manufacturer's perspective, they can't train the dealer because that's a franchise. And so they don't want to be held accountable for their security, right? The lawyers tell them hands off, you can't train them. All you can do is issue standards and say, hey, Mr. Dealer, you have to comply with all this, which can sometimes be hard for that business to do. But if you think about how many small businesses have franchise models in the country, if a Ford dealer has a security incident, he's going to be on the phone to Ford, help me, my hair's on fire, what do I do? They can only do so much. The brand damage reflects back on the manufacturer, right? Mm-hmm. Ford had a breach. Well, like the last 2 Marriott breaches, those weren't Marriott corporate, those were franchises. Right. So, and again, Marriott can't train those small businesses, those hospitality companies that might own a few different franchises or a restaurant, a hotel or whatever in their small town. They've got a hospitality company. So what we're going to do is take our workbook, it's NIST-based curriculum, and we're going to customize it for different industry verticals, whether it's healthcare or automotive or hospitality, so that we have examples in the workbook and we have case studies and we have templates for different things. Like your third-party risk questions that you ask might look a little different if you're a doctor's office than if you're a car dealer. So if we give you some examples and templates to use from your industry that are relevant to you, even the question like, what do you have to protect? That is so different depending on what kind of small or medium-sized business you are. So you might have consumer records, you might not have any, right? You might have healthcare records. Like you could have driver's licenses. It's all over the place as far as data is concerned, and then of course other assets in your business as well. Like in the age of the connected car, your shop manuals might be something you need to protect. So we're working on that now. We have a curriculum developer who's a fantastic guy, who was one of the first Pluralsight authors on cybersecurity, if you're familiar with Pluralsight. And we're currently looking for sponsors and companies that we can partner with to customize that content. Because I know I could do the automotive one in my sleep, but that's it. I don't know anything about small businesses in the healthcare space or the hospitality industry or any of those things. So look for that to come out probably this fall if we can pull it off that quickly. And it's going to be all remote. It's going to be like an hour or so a week for 6 or 8 weeks, however long the curriculum ends up being, so that we're not taking small business people out of their businesses. We're not asking for too much of their time. We are giving them some homework. We are going to follow up with them over time because we want to know that they took action. That's the most important thing. And I think most of them, your audience probably knows this, they end up needing a virtual CISO or they need an MSSP. But there are still some steps that they can take in their business that they need to take to protect themselves, and I think everybody agrees you can't just hire an MSSP and then take your hands off the wheel, or hire a virtual CISO and then do nothing. It doesn't work that way. Yeah.
But the whole vendor risk assessment, we were talking about having different verticals have different responses and different knowledge, different training. I'm wondering if this is something maybe that a virtual CISO might be able to use or help with their clients that okay, so you have client A, but you have downstream vendor from you, client. In order to make sure that that's correct, you want to use this template from the National Cybersecurity Alliance or this process in order to get a better idea, as opposed to using like just a standard one-size-fits-all questionnaire template. That's essentially what one of the uses for this, maybe?
Yeah, and I think we're also not going to reinvent the wheel. So there are a lot of nonprofits doing a lot of good work, creating a lot of good tools and templates. And so we're going to be working with all of them. I've had a few conversations where I found a really good template for a particular thing, or maybe it's a policy or what have you, or a third-party risk questionnaire. And so they've said, yeah, sure, please use it. Just, leave our logo on it and you're welcome to use it. So there's a thing called Nonprofit Cyber, which is another nonprofit of all the nonprofits that work in cybersecurity. And we all know who each other is, and we know what our strengths are and what we bring to the space. And so I think we're going to be borrowing from some of those other programs. There is a lot of information out there for small businesses, right? Like Visa and MasterCard have a ton of content on their websites for small businesses, things they can do. The problem is the delivery mechanism. I don't know a single small business person who's going to sit down and consume that content on the web just randomly, right? We have to get them into that virtual classroom and follow up with them. And one of the things that we're really good at is having a helpful tone of voice, like approaching everything from a perspective of like, we're not here to tell you that you're doing everything wrong and that the hacker in a hoodie is standing outside your door. We're here to help you have more peace of mind about, you know, mitigating risk. And we want to help you sleep better at night. We're not here to scare you. So I think that if we can get folks into the courses with a minimal time commitment and give them some really targeted, helpful tasks to do, and we get proof that they've done them and we can show that they're actually changing their behavior, I think our secret sauce that we're going to bring to this is going to be that the way we deliver it. So we're not out there to create a whole bunch of new assets and resources. We're going to take what's already available, whether it's from the government, you know, the Small Business Administration or the FTC or other nonprofits, or maybe some of our board member companies. Visa and MasterCard are both on the board. There's a lot of information out there. The problem is getting people to actually engage with it and take steps. And
that's the friction. You want to try to make it as frictionless as possible, as meaningful as possible, because from my perspective, it does seem overwhelming that there's a lot of stuff out there. Don't know where to start. You just you do an internet search on information security awareness training for small and mid-sized businesses, and you just get it's gibberish and sometimes. So you mentioned that you were looking for sponsors. Is there anything that you want to add to that maybe we can help get the word out for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa P at staysafeonline.org. That's my email address, or you can hit me up on LinkedIn. We have a one pager that I can send out that describes the program in a nutshell. And then we have a longer presentation we've been walking through with some companies that are interested. So you've got companies, usually it's larger companies that have a lot of SMBs in their supply chain. So we've spoken to companies in healthcare, hospitality, automotive, financial services. There's, especially healthcare, just a lot of small businesses in those supply chains, whether it's big pharma or it's doctors' offices. There's also a huge knowledge gap there, right? Like learning how to translate between, if I'm a physician, I've got an office with 2 or 3 other physicians, trying to translate between the cybersecurity professional and a physician, like that's the talent that we bring, is like we started at the beginning talking about translating. So, there's large healthcare companies that have a vested interest in having that local doctor's office be more secure. Because if the companies in your supply chain aren't successful, whether they're your suppliers or your customers, it's going to have an effect on the overall industry. I think that's kind of an assumption that most of us realize. So that's where we're seeing interest in partnering on the program. And those businesses can also help us customize the content, maybe guest lecture a session or something like that. So lots of opportunities there. We're hiring for this program as well, and getting ready to scale.
That's awesome. There's a lot of stuff there. I could talk about this for hours, but I know that we don't have pretty much out of time. But so this new program will be going live hopefully in the fall of this year, is what you were saying before, right?
There's some content on our website. We call it Cyber Secure My Business. And we also have a form on our website you can fill out if you want more information. There's a contact us form on staysafeonline.org.
I am actually on the website right now, and I will look for that. So, well, Lisa, thank you so much for taking a few minutes this morning to talk with us. Really appreciate your time. This is great stuff. Thank you so much, too, for what your organization, what you and all of your folks are doing to help not only with the small and mid-sized businesses, but also the personal aspect, the cyberbullying. That just kills me that that sort of thing happens. And I really appreciate all that you do in that space.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And everybody, stay secure.